Okay, I'd like to call the January 22nd, 2024 infrastructure meeting to order. The first, well, I guess we just introduced ourselves, so maybe we can just go around one more time for the recording and introduce ourselves.
Sure, Alan Gazzardo, Assistant Manager.
Matt West, Marbury Borough Manager.
John Price, Structural Engineer.
Nick Cirilli, representing Yerkes, who prepared the bid documents with John's technical drawings and specifications.
Jim Spear, Borough Council on Infrastructure Committee here.
Yeah, Ira Winston.
Mike Liani. Tony Catalozzi with the Borough Engineer's Office. Eric Johnson with Glenn.
Jeff Eldon with Public Works.
Okay, just one quick thing and then we'll get started with the agenda, is to, thank our Public Works group for keeping the street clear, so the streets clear. I know it was a bit of a challenge, hadn't done it in quite a while, but yeah.
We got the cobwebs off the plows and we did the road running, so it went well.
Yeah. Okay, so the first agenda item is the roof. So.
We did have, are there minutes to approve for this October?
There were not.
Okay, good.
Are we working on those? Just,
Okay.
Just wasn't sure, that's why.
Do you take your own minutes?
I do, yeah. I just need to head up to my list of things to do.
So we'll just table it. Okay.
So thanks, Ira. I've asked Nick Cirilli and John Price to be here, who represent the borough through the 80 Windsor Avenue roof reinforcement project. This is one of the projects that predates my time with the borough, and so I'm also coming in midstream and learning how to ride this wave. I believe it had been in front of this committee, correct me if I'm wrong, in 2023, and the idea was that we wanted to work on getting a bid for the project based upon the plans that were designed by John Price. And Yerkes, Nick and his crew worked on the bid package, and we publicly advertised the bid with the idea that we would, we had a guesstimate of what those costs would be, and this was an exercise for us to put it out to bid to get real numbers. And those real numbers came in significantly higher than we were anticipating. So thank you for agreeing to put this on the agenda today. And I really would like it to be mostly focused on where do we go from here? Is this still going to be a project that's going to be high priority? If yes, are we comfortable with making a recommendation to council to consider accepting the low bid? If not, what are the alternatives that we can explore from this point onward? And instead of me fumbling through trying to figure out what those issues are, that's why I've asked both Nick and John to be here to be able to answer any questions and help guide us in that conversation and provide more details for you all so you can make a much more informed decision. So I'll stop talking and turn it over to Nick, and if you could just step us through the bid process.
Sure.
And where we're at.
Yeah, what I'm going to do is I'll do the cursory that we received structural bid documents, drawings from John's firm. John was retained to look at the most optimum fix based on the condition of the roof. And I'm going to let John embellish or clarify what I'm going to say. That roof is undersized. It's a historical building. It's got 3 sections, the east wing, the west wing, and the library. About 3 years ago, we sustained a isolated failure of the ceiling in the library, requiring us to shore it up and repair the cracked roof joists. The members that constitute, there's the joist, and then there's the peak. Each of these are called the rafters. And John will elaborate, each of those components are undersized based on current codes, and it also is experiencing sags and a bow in the wall in one of the wings. So John prepared this package. We did competitive bid, and we guesstimated, as Matt had said, somewhere in the $300,000 to $400,000 range. There's 12 trusses. We did not hire a third party to do a detailed cost estimate. It was my look at this 12 trusses at approximately $30,000 a truss. There's 4 trusses per section. Personally, based on our experience, we felt that was an adequate number. $30,000 a truss. The truss materials are probably $10,000. The installation is about $20,000. And of course, it didn't come in at $360,000. The low bidder, who is qualified, came in at $462,900 for an option where the borough turns over the entire building to the contractor.
For how long?
Good question. Probably more like a 2-month time frame. And the second bidder came in at $660,000. And we can tell you this, 2 bids doesn't give you the best tracking of price. 5 were interested, 3 bowed out, which does tell you something about the market. The market's busy, and these 2 put a number on it. And I would be the first to say that even the low bidder is somewhat high. The dilemma, and this again is my experience, if we rebid it without some type of repackaging, i.e. let's just do 1 wing, 1 year, and then the least structural wings defer for 2 years, and then we can time this thing. John, my colleague, may disagree with that because he did what's called a structural analysis of those components, and he might be able to shed some light on the severity of the roof systems of all 3 of those wings. I'll turn it over to John now unless you have any questions.
Well, I actually did have one question, just a relevance, I think. Did we clear off the roof?
No, the snowfall we got the beginning of last week was going to fall the following day, and then with the sunshine that we got Saturday, it's just about going up there.
And there's no new damage as far as you know? Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, so John will explain it's a slate roof. It's a pretty heavy, element to cover the roof, and I'll turn it over to John.
Samantha, Ryan asked if we could just take the slate off to lower the weight on the roof. And that doesn't get us to where we need to be. It gets us part of the way. The roof slate is heavy, and the plaster is heavy. But to take the slate off and put metal would be probably the same number, maybe even greater cost, and it doesn't get us there. So my recommendation to Samantha was, at the time, was to reinforce the roof and to leave the slate on the roof. And the system that went out to bid is maybe the 3rd revision. The first 2 had more material, and it was not as, I don't know if I can use the word elegant, but we wanted something that would not visually like scream at you. We wanted something that would be minimalist, but still do the job. So after 2 revisions, after 2 revisions, we came up with a system of trusses that support beams that meet the sloped roof. The roof slopes, as you enter the library, it slopes up to a flat, and all the wings are basically the same. The roof slopes to a flat part, and then it slopes back down. So that flat part's the attic, and there's ductwork, and there's sprinklers and things like that, and maybe that's what drove the cost up, because they have to bring in somebody to decommission the heating and the cooling system while they build this structure. And the market, as you mentioned, is fairly active right now, so that's probably, those factors probably contributed to the cost difference between the estimate and what we saw for bids. The path forward may be just to do the library now and to postpone the two wings, the west and the east wing, till later. But I think it's not going to be a third of the cost. It'll, I don't know.
Yeah, the mobilization cost would be higher.
But how many
because we
trusses
kind
in each section?
of Four trusses in each
Four,
section.
so you're talking about doing like, only, you were talking about only doing 4 now.
Yes,
And
So it
so,
won't be a third of the cost.
correct. You're gonna have 3 mobilization costs if you phase it in, let's say, 3 years time frame.
Yeah.
John, Merritt?
if you wanted to do the library first because it's the most actively used, to me that makes the most sense.
But most actively used, but is it the one that's in the worst shape, or they're all in equally bad shape?
It's probably the worst shape because 2 reactors that are along the same line have cracked. So I went up into the attic and there's 5 that I noticed, 5 cracked reactors. And the reactors cracked it where the knots are on the bottom side because the knots don't carry tension. So those are the ones that cracked. And there's 2 in the library. In recollection, there's 2 in the VFW wing and 1 in the Girl Scout wing that cracked. And the ones that cracked are all have knots on the bottom side, so they're overstressed already, and then the knots really don't help that much. But when a reactor cracks like that, the ones on each side of it have to pick up the slack. It's sort of like soldiers. If you lose the soldier in the middle, then the 2 soldiers on each side have to fight.
So you're saying by replacing these 4, we're potentially helping the others out a little bit?
What's that?
Replacing some of them, we're taking some of the stress off of the parts that aren't being replaced. Is that first thing?
Well, we're going to right, so right now, the load's being carried by the 2 adjacent reactors. The 2 that are adjacent to the one that cracked. So that's a concern because even if they're not cracked, they're overstressed. But because they're overstressed, the ones that were the weakest failed. So the roof is in a slow failure mode, I would call it.
Any questions, guys?
Yeah, I'd say.
Well, go for it.
All right, so just so I'm clear, the fixture proposing is like some kind of substructure to support the existing beams, that the existing beams would stay there, but they'd be supported newly by some substructure. Those would be visible on the inside.
It'll be visible.
Is this considered a permanent
It's
fix?
permanent.
Okay.
My understanding is that, I am not a structural engineer, nor do I profess to be one. But my observation through the bid process and the site meeting is that, the solution is a rather simple solution, right? It's an easy solution to figure out. What's inflating the costs are the surgery that's required to do it. It's gonna be, because we're living in the space, and there's a lot of fine surgery that needs to happen in order to build the simple structure. And that's what my perception, that's gonna result in the higher cost, because it's gonna be higher labor costs because of it.
And the library would be the most expensive from a labor point of view because there's the bookcases that they have to cover. It's harder to work in that space.
This is probably a stupid question, but the useful life of that fix as opposed to any sort of other alternatives is about the same.
I think it's the least cost. What we came up with, I think, is least cost.
But in terms of it's a permanent fix, but
The lifespan of it.
The lifespan of it. that would be comparable to the lifespan of some sort of alternative.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, gotcha.
So maybe you can question, but would it be worth considering replacing more of the roof, like just completely tearing it off and building something simpler over it? We looked at that.
We didn't look at it. I can't imagine that it would be less expensive.
I think I remember the last borough manager saying something about that the roof is an unusual construction, has some kind of internal eave or something on the outside, or
Gutter, internal gutter.
internal gutter, okay. Does that
Which-
complicate the construction or repair?
I don't think so. I think there's an architect involved, her name's Susanna Baruco. I believe she commented on that, but there's nothing in the documents about putting a liner in the gutter, which maybe that's required, but that's beyond my expertise.
My notes from last time said we were gonna get a quote to reline the gutters. Did we ever do that?
We got that, and that quote is within the capital plan.
And what about, the cleaning out, is that going on?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we clean them when we have to, when we get caked up with debris.
How is that, because I feel like that's a separate conversation with the structure of the roof. How are we, that's like a maintenance thing. I understand if we need to, if we want to consider completely tearing off the roof and building a different roof, we'd have to consider a different gutter system, integrate the same thing. I know it's been problematic since the beginning of time, not being able to see the gutters and to identify those leaks because they're out of sight, out of mind. But how does that have a bearing on this proposal?
Oh, but my question is just, are we paying extra to maintain a overly complicated structure? Will we benefit from moving forward with something simpler in the future?
I was just trying to understand where the gutter conversation came from.
Yeah,
I get what you're saying.
Oh, man.
So the way we look at it, once we saw these numbers, is you've got a defective roof structure. Jonathan's design will bring that up to code compliance. I saw his calculations for wind load, snow load, and supporting the defective roof rafter joist system. So it'll bring that up and give you the useful life of a structure, which is what, 30 or 40 years. That, to Matt's point, that doesn't negate from maintenance of an old building. Gutters, like currently we think there's a small leak in the slate roof system. Jonathan's design doesn't cover, that's maintenance. So that they're two separate, mutually exclusive items. This fix will take away the imminent danger and progressive failure of the roof. Takes it away. You can sleep at night. But it doesn't take away the maintenance responsibilities of an old building.
Nor does it address the bowing walls.
Well, yes.
We fixed the bowing walls in 2013 when I was with another company.
Okay.
There were lintels in the VFW wing, there were lintels that were failing. They got rebuilt in 2013. So I wouldn't lose sleep over the walls bowing because they have bowed, but I don't think they're moving further. If that gives you any comfort.
So what's the, do you have any?
I just had two other quick questions. The first one is, is there anything else that's in imminent danger of failure or interim danger of failure?
There's an item in the basement that needs attention. It's some masonry that's, it's like, maybe it's ThoroSeal or it's like plaster, it's like calving or it's like delaminating from the wall. If that falls, it could land on a pipe, but I don't know if it's a gas pipe or not. That's concerning to me.
Was that in this contract or?
Okay. And then I guess my only other question would be, for the manager, do you have any thoughts, recommendations on the strategy of getting it done now versus a phased approach?
I'm always a fan of doing everything once because you're going to keep your costs, your mobilization costs down. And it just prolongs the problem. And you don't know what problems might present themselves as a result of the first phase also. And so I would rather, personally, I like going in and identifying the problem and solving that entire problem instead of drawing it out. I also wanted to bring to the committee's attention that that base bid, the 462,900, is if we close the building for the duration of the project, and it also does not include any of the restoration work, such as painting and restoring of the cracks that are existing. And that base bid does cover any cracks and any scars from the surgery, but there are existing cracks in the plaster that have just been gone, that have gone unmaintained all these years, that we wanted to add that option C and option D to address those things. And option D is the painting of all of the rooms also. So this is just that option B is for closing it for the duration of the project for all 3 wings and just for the structure and any repairs related specific to the structure.
But it didn't seem like it was that much more to keep it open. How much was that?
It was 478,600.
So another like $15,000.
And that would keep the library open while we work on the roof? Patron kids and everything?
They will use,
Wing, the east wing, the library stays open.
Oh, okay.
I think they were using the children's wing.
Which is not covered under this because it has its own roof system.
And I think it kind of like said that if it was closing out, it would be closing out for about 2 months, or is that just an estimate? We don't.
It's an estimate, but let me see if I got it.
And if we did it part at a time, would we have to shut it down, do you think?
We'd have to move the library to either the children's wing or to one of the other wings
I see, so it would still be a shutdown.
of sorts.
It will be disruptive regardless.
Doing it in sequence, to answer your question, like east wing, west wing and library stay open, finish the east wing, then do the west wing, roughly 6 weeks per wing. And so that's 18 weeks, but that can be cut down significantly if we turn over the whole building to that. We're not exactly sure. This was an add-on during we don't have a number for that. We can find out.
I thought there was a number for the.
Oh, not cost number, yeah, I mean time number, schedule number.
When you've been on something like a 100-year-old building, a fix of a 100-year-old building, how much is taken into account that there are unknowns that you're going to uncover? And,
Great
that,
question.
and there may be overruns, something else.
Great question. Any renovation project, there's hidden and unforeseen conditions. Once you get into that wall, you may see pipes. The order of magnitude estimate is in the 10 to 15% contingency range.
Above this.
But that's not budgeted for.
No.
Okay, well, I guess we've heard the facts, so, I think we're gonna have to take this to council, for a decision, because it's really, it's mostly a financial decision, right?
It is. One that's going to be a difficult one to answer.
Right, I understand, but I don't know how we could decide today, because it's trading up against the
Agreed.
public expenses. Okay? Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, we do have to make a decision relatively quickly, right?
Yeah, I think I can always notify the apparent low bidder that we need an extra month, and I'm sure they'll grant it to us.
Do they have any, they didn't have any ideas for reducing the cost?
Well, it's a public bid, you really,
You can't.
yes, you can. What we do know from our experience, I think Eric can echo, prices aren't getting any cheaper.
No, I understand that.
And every bid the pad has been high. Just everything is
In
high.
orange, this is crazy.
Okay, well, anyway, we need to move on with this.
I did have one final question in terms of just helping me think through. If we did close the entire thing at once, which helps it get done faster, would we have any recourse if the time frame drags out beyond the expected? Like if they expected it to be done in 2 months because we're closing the entire thing, but then it takes 4 months, is there any recourse in that?
We have in the contract documents liquidated damages. What we would, I think.
For the 2 months?
Well, we have not pinned down a schedule for closing the building. That was an addendum that we issued during the bidding process. But we would get their schedule, and we can enforce liquidated damages for every day that they're over. It's $250 you deduct from the price. That is a complicated thing because they're going to say, my material delivery's not here, I'm still waiting, but you can do that to answer your question. The other option, which I've never seen a municipality, is penalty bonus. Okay, for every time you want to penalize them, how about a bonus for coming in under? For every day under, give us $500 or something.
But the problem is they're gonna run into field conditions, and then they're gonna negotiate schedule extensions.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but if we have some sort of teeth, then it potentially changes what you're, like, it changes the position that you're negotiating from.
Well, there's things we can do, like see if they can work 12-hour days. That might be a small change order, or work 7 days a week. That,
We're already over budget.
so it'll be over budget.
Okay, well, we need to move on to the next item. Okay, so maybe like a quick update on the bridge.
Sure. So I continue to meet every other week with the project engineer, Benoni. Thank you. Thank you. And we are also planning, so I'll be meeting next Tuesday. I've asked representatives from Benoni to attend the next workshop meeting of Borough Council on the 1st to give a more in-depth update, including the updated time schedule, which was included in the meeting packet for this meeting, as well as the the updated cost of the bridge, which has taken a significant jump. We're now up at the over $15 million mark to reconstruct the bridge. Those meetings continue to go well. We are still in a holding pattern until we hear back from Amtrak regarding the construction easement. The borough solicitor continues to nudge Amtrak, I believe, on a weekly basis, asking for the status. And it's difficult for me to continue to give updates that say not much is moving from our perspective. And so, you know, arguably I say this, I think, just about every status meeting for the bridge, and that arguably this is one of the most complicated infrastructure projects within the region because every single utility is located on that bridge, and it's over, you know, it's a PennDOT project over Amtrak right-of-way with Norfolk Southern. That also, all of these huge bureaucracies have their systems in place that you have to navigate. And oftentimes one thing has to go before the other, and then it's a timing issue. So I just wanted to, you know, I remember this when I was here previously, and My assessment is that we are the closest we've ever been to getting this thing moving. And it is, which I know it's not saying much, but it's close. Like the final design is just about done and ready to, once that's done, it's moving forward. Then it becomes a funding issue. It's currently, has been on the statewide transportation improvement program for Pennsylvania, which is managed by the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission. The project continues to be on that. Any major transportation-related infrastructure project will not get any federal, state, county funds unless that project resides on the tip. It continues to be on the tip. While it is a significantly lower number than the newest estimated costs, I would not be alarmed by that. If you find yourself on DVRPC's website and you look at the tip, you're going to look at the number, you're like, wait, that's not the number that Matt said. Those are placeholder numbers, the best guesses. Once a project gets closer to construction, that's where the real numbers start coming into play, and they adjust the values accordingly. Rest assured, I am not, and conferred with our project engineer, no project has never been not funded because those numbers were wrong. They will find money somewhere and reallocate it so that project gets completed. So I'm looking forward to February 1st. They will be here and addressing all of council, and looking forward to it.
Okay, thanks.
I have one quick question.
Go ahead, sorry.
So there was a note that Amtrak said that they can only support one bridge project at a time. In the minutes of the, whatever was in back, there was the Yerkes minutes. And
Yeah, that was from our last meeting minutes. Right.
yeah, and then, but, so it said that that Amtrak had said that they can only support one at a time. And there's apparently a bridge project that's slated to take 3 years and then potentially 1 to 2 ones ahead of us. So is the implication that Amtrak is, even under the rosiest scenario, not going to be able to get to us for like 6 or 7 years?
Good question. Not get to us? No. We need to continue with our approvals. And at the recommendation of our project engineer, they said to continue to move forward. And this was not just at Pennoni, this was our representative from PennDOT also saying, don't use that as an excuse not to move forward with your final approvals.
Right.
Once you get your final approvals, then it becomes a different conversation to navigate moving up on Amtrak's timeline for the actual construction process. That's a different.
Sure.
If you don't have your project ready to go, Amtrak's never going to listen to you to get on their construction list.
Right.
They still have to go through the approvals list, which is the status that we're in right now is the design approval. So that was a recommendation from both Pennoni and PennDOT to keep moving forward. Once all the final approvals are done, then it becomes another conversation. Where are we on Amtrak's list?
Yeah, and that's kind of what I assumed, but like I guess, kind of the way I was thinking, they have one it sounds like it's going to be in construction for the next 3 years. So we won't get, there was something about the expected time frame. I think for our construction bids we posted is like next March 2025. I thought I saw that in there somewhere. But then if there's, I guess, just like, who knows if these are comparable projects, but if there's, this one is taking 3 years, there's potentially 2 ahead of us that, cannot move simultaneously. They're going to move back to back. If they're both ahead of us, that's another 5-6 years. So is that my question is, am I accurately understanding?
Yes.
Okay.
And my encouragement to you is to, let's get us to that point to have that problem, because that's a different thing to navigate than the engineering things.
For sure. But I'm trying to get, I understand that. I'm just trying to get a sense of what the entire process entails and what those timelines. Because obviously we don't control what Amtrak does. in terms of what their process is. But it does, yeah.
That is an understatement.
So once we get to that point of being ready, we're not necessarily stuck behind 2 or 3 more projects. I mean, there may be other ways around that, or maybe other ways to get started, or get started with some other aspect of that.
That is my understanding.
Okay.
That they're different types of conversations.
Yes, yeah.
Which could, include, I believe there's a photograph of a certain somebody who's up on the bridge from 10, 15 years ago, who's still a certain somebody at the federal level.
Sure. Yes, yeah.
Wink, wink. Right, I'm trying, it becomes a different conversation.
Right.
Right? And so, I am not concerned, I think it's something to consider, that it is certainly another wrinkle, we gotta get the iron out and iron it out, but I don't think that will be as difficult as getting all of your approvals done, and how many sets of eyes need to look at these changing plans, updated plans, making sure they're in succession.
Yeah, for sure. I understand that part of it. Yeah, but that's
Yes,
yeah.
yep.
And then they were. It sounded like there was no, or they only recently told us that we needed 30%.
Which is what we're still trying to hear back from Amtrak. That was in our, the borough solicitor communicated directly with Amtrak, expressing our deep concern about that price and how it would be cost prohibitive for the borough. We've only got, just under a $6 million operating budget. That would be a ridiculous amount for us to post. And so there is precedent, per the minutes, there is precedent for a similar project in a similar sized borough where Amtrak is considering reducing that. So that's what we're still waiting to hear back from Amtrak, which the solicitor has been in contact with their solicitor.
Thank you.
Well, I know there's so many different moving parts, and it sounds like things aren't getting done, and you don't see anything. There are so many things that have to happen behind the scenes that it's a challenge to move things inch by inch.
Yeah, it makes total sense. I'm just trying to get my arms around it. So,
Yeah,
The 30% is a funding stream issue, right? You're not ultimately responsible for 30%.
it's like a security deposit that they require from anybody doing work along the right of way.
But theoretically, we would recoup, even if we were
Yes,
supposedly putting up 30%, we would recoup
yes.
down to 5% or whatever.
Yeah, currently 80, 15, 5. So we're always on the hook for 5% of it. I'm in the process of finalizing the first reimbursement request for the Fed. So I've been working on that through late last week, and this is the first time I'm doing it. So I had to rewrite it a couple times because you go to PennDOT or representative at PennDOT, actually it should be this way. Okay, back to the drawing board. But once we figure out how to do it the first time, every subsequent reimbursement request should be that much easier. I think 30% will be, I'm not confident that they're going to stick to the 30%. I think there will be some sort of give. I don't know what it's going to be yet. And that is, to your point, it becomes a cash flow problem because the borough has to post it, which means that level of money we would have to borrow for it, and we have borrowed. There is a current bond for the bridge expenses, which we have not drawn down on yet, which we need to draw down by October 2020 of this year. That should cover our 5%. This is in addition to that 5%. So that's what's throwing off. Oh my goodness, this is a new financial problem that we have to solve. It's complicated. That's often been the challenge, is the cash flow problem. Because in the current scenario, it's designed where the borough has to foot the bill for everything. And we get the request, the reimbursement request for the 80% from Fed, 15% state. But we have to foot that bill. Right now, it's not bad. We can absorb it because it's all design-related costs. Those are manageable costs. They're not cheap, but they're manageable. We have enough cash flow to manage that. What keeps me up at night is when it goes to construction. And those bills that come in from the contractor, those are going to be difficult for the borough to make sure we have enough revenue to pay them and we'll have to do a really quick turnaround time to get that reimbursement. That's what the bond issuance was designed to address. This 30% is in addition to that, which is trouble.
Okay? So, and we'll hear more about that when they come to visit. Okay, so the next item, we can quickly say the HVAC is working, right?
I can just give you the brief summary on that one.
Okay.
So the system's fully in. My colleague was just out here last Thursday with Ken and walked around about various punch list items and concerns that the staff had on the controls. So that we'll be getting back to the contractor with any outstanding issues. But the good news with that is we're still holding a substantial amount of money from the contractor, like over $100,000 in the contract. So we got plenty. We're still on the plus side of that to keep them on the hook to finish off the last little punch
Is
list.
there any, do we have any claims for delays or not really?
That you're getting into the whole, I mean, the hugest delay of the whole project was just waiting for, I mean, it took 10 months to get the units on the project. So at this point, just trying to get them across the finish line, just be done with it. So that's all I have on that.
So as someone who's really interested that we have good communication in this room and able to hear each other and that the camera and microphones are able to hear, when they first turned on this thing, it was really loud.
That was when
We couldn't even hear
It
each
wasn't under
other.
control.
So at that point, that was just the system was just running full blast. That was before the controls went into
There was
place.
some kind of testing going on? or-
Well, that was before all the controls were turned on and functioning properly.
Okay.
The system was just on.
So
Like instead of being 100, it was 100% where it usually runs.
Yeah, there's a damper
80%.
control on those, so
Yeah.
I could like literally open them wide open and then you hear that loud noise,
Yeah.
but right now they're shut.
So that's something we do have control over?
Yeah.
Like, if we come into a meeting and it was really disconcerting that one time.
So you don't think there's a delay claim where it's not worth pursuing?
You're be hard, like, just like they were talking about, like liquidated damage, it's a hard press to get through that.
Okay, because it's not clear that it
It's-
cost us anything.
Well, that's the thing, to go after liquidated damage, you need to prove that you have been harmed,
Yeah.
and to what quantity have you been harmed, what price is that?
Okay, let's move on. Capital budget. Matt?
It's done, I have nothing to talk about. I'm kidding. It's getting heavy in here. Thought I'd lighten it up a little bit. Is there a way that we can share this on the screen? It's on SharePoint.
I'm not logged into the SharePoint, I don't think. Actually, can I just enable you to screen share it?
Zoom. Hang on a minute.
Pretty sure I can log in.
So while we try to figure out how we can get the working document up on the screen, I have been working since I started 2.5 months ago, building a comprehensive capital improvement plan, something that hasn't been really instituted. I shouldn't say instituted, hasn't been maintained over the years. I believe we created one when I was here on my first time. The past several years, I believe it's been taken and things have been added to the capital fund, but the capital improvement plan hasn't been maintained and hasn't been updated. And so the idea is that while we have a capital fund, which is how we fund these capital projects, the capital fund is the funding mechanism to pay for these things. We need to take a step back and develop a capital improvement plan, which should be working hand in glove with your annual budget, because a capital improvement plan is not, you're going to get tired of hearing me say this, is not a funding document. It's a planning document. So the big three planning documents in municipal government, according to me, are your budget. Of course, that is the most important. That is your funding document, your capital plan, and your comprehensive plan. Those are the big three. There are other plans that municipalities can use to support those things, but those are really the core three that I like to focus on in any municipality. I like to do a focus on annual update to a capital improvement plan at the beginning of every year. So from January to mid-year, let's call it for simplicity, through July, we're working on reviewing the capital improvement plan. This committee is going to be the workhorse of the capital improvement plan, at which point you will make a recommendation, hopefully, to move to full council. I'll give the same presentation to full council for their input, with hopeful adoption in mid-year, July, August. Once the capital plan, like a 5-year capital plan, is adopted by council, it then goes and moves into how do we pay for it. That's the hand-in-glove scenario where it moves into the budget, where we can develop that next year's budget. How much are we going to allocate for capital expenses? Since our universe, all funds, government funds, capital F, money, are children of the general fund, right? And in our situation, we don't have any proprietary real estate village dedicated to parks and open space or capital funds, debt. It all goes in one fund, the general fund. And so from an accounting standpoint, it's easier to focus on the activities of the general fund, and then you should have an allocation of how much money are we going to allocate annually for capital improvements. That allocation then goes into the capital fund, for which the projects developed, we'll get on my computer, developed by this capital plan are identified and paid for. These are the nuggets that we pay for in that annual capital fund. So that's where my head is at. That's what I would like to start this conversation with this committee about and show you what I have been working on along with my management team. My successes in managing and developing and managing capital plans are starting with the known inventory list. These are all of the things that have been identified by staff. I've asked Chief String and Jeff Eldon to think of all of their needs that define a capital need. In our universe, a capital fund has been, a capital item has defined as a one-time cost of no less than $5,000, and it has a useful life of more than 2 years. So that is the mechanism that we identify a thing, right? A widget. If that widget is defined by those two things, it then goes on the inventory list. This inventory list is a living, breathing document. This is what staff and what council will continue, this committee will continue to review, identify things, because this, remember, this is a snapshot as of today. These are all the things that we can think of as of today. There might be something that pops up later this afternoon or tomorrow that, guess what? Here's another capital project. It'll go on this inventory list. And so the inventory list is the living, breathing document of all known capital infrastructure. The prioritization, if you see there's, the way I've developed the table, department, site, where is it located, in the title. Those are the three easier ones. From project title to the right, those become a little more subjective to manage. Priority, right? This is our priority as of today. In order for us to fully fund a 5-year capital plan, my recommendation is to really focus on those items that are high priority. And so that would be a good touch point for this committee to review this on an annual basis and identify which ones should be high and which ones should be medium, which ones should be low. Because that then defines which projects are we focusing on. And that update in the priority can change year over year, which is why I like to do this on an annual basis, right? And then, because I love these types of plans, first 6 months, capital plan, last 6 months, budget. We're always doing a big plan, right? Capital plan, budget. Capital plan, budget. I'm hoping that moving forward, it's going to be a heavier lift right now since we've never done this level of comprehensive capital planning. It'll be a heavier lift this go around, but subsequent years it becomes easier to manage because you already have the list this committee is familiar with those items on the list, and it becomes more of a management thing instead of a creation thing. Moving to the right, you're going to also see an estimated replacement year. This is our best guess of when we should be considering the replacement. That too is subjective and can change. As well as the estimated cost, you're going to see that I've got two different columns, estimated cost low and estimated cost high. That's just something that I've integrated in my experience to have two separate columns, because these are not engineered. We did not get quotes for all of these things. This is boy, how much do you think it's going to cost? And then personally I said, add 20% to that, right? Just to give us a decent enough range. I don't want you to get too hung up on the cost estimates. That is just to give us a ballpark of, okay, what is it that we're looking towards? Once you get closer to developing your 5-year plan, where you identify those high projects, look at how you want to pay for those things over 5 years, that's where those costs become a little more refined, right? Remember in my budget discussion, I can't remember if the two of you were there, described this year's budget as accurate but not precise. I just didn't have enough time for it to be a precise budget. You can really start fine-tuning different numbers to know by the dollar, oh, I know that's a good number. It was accurate, not precise. Accuracy versus precision. Same thing with the low and high cost. It's accurate, but it's not precise. The closer you get to implementation and paying for those things, that's where those numbers become more precise. Good example was what we talked about at the beginning of this meeting. We had an accurate number, what we thought was an accurate number. Now we know we have a precise number, and it's outside of our estimates. The second to last column is status. So what I did, I used all the current capital plan. You're not going to notice the first one on there is the HVAC system replacement. That's done. So I knew what the low and high values were. It was a high priority and it was completed. So for the completion, for the development of the 5-year capital plan, that won't be included because the status is completed. So by having it in tabular form, we can then go and query, show me high priority for those projects that are proposed, not in progress or completed, because we've already accounted for those things. And it just starts making it that much easier to manage. Then the conversation becomes, okay, how much is it going to potentially cost us over 5 years to do those things? And if it's too low, this committee can consider, well, let's look at medium-high also and see what that does with the project and reevaluate those widgets, those items inside of the capital improvement plan. That's the living, breathing document part of it. As we migrate towards that final document of these are the projects that this committee believes are the best, that should be prioritized over the next 5 years, goes on to council. They either hopefully agree, maybe make some final adjustments, and then you adopt that plan. Then it turns around from the staff level to manage that. You have given us the authority to then move forward with the completion of these things in a year-to-year cycle. Come full circle, once we implement those things and it becomes an issue, or it becomes a payment process, those invoices that are generated through the capital plan, you'll then see one last time, review, approve those expenses as the council, and as part of those motions, it'll be, this is a capital fund expense paid for through the capital fund. That's your last check and balance of, oh, okay, great. It's linked to the capital plan, paid for through the budget, through the capital fund. All right? So, I just wanted to say thank you to my staff and my management team for helping me with this. And this is a point where I'm not expecting us to go through line by line of each one of these things. This is the introduction of the process. As a result of this meeting, I would like to forward this or make this available to this committee. You can dive in and see what these things are and give you an opportunity to meet with me and my management team to discuss these things and suggest additions. Right? So there are some things that we might have forgotten that you all, from an elected standpoint, might think, oh, really, we should be considering this. This is your opportunity to add some things onto the capital plan. All right? This is going to be an ongoing conversation. Next several infrastructure meetings, we're going to be talking about the capital plan. So we're starting it. I will send this spreadsheet out to this committee and ask that you please review it and then schedule a time to meet with me and the management team to discuss the details in preparation for the next infrastructure committee meeting. And that's what I was hoping to talk to you all about. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them now.
Any questions, guys?
No, I don't think.
Okay, Michael?
Yeah, makes sense.
Right? Okay, looking forward to working with this committee and developing it. And I think, you know, from an outward-facing perspective, it's a really good document that once it becomes official, that you all, as elected officials, can point to say, hey, look, I mean, we have this, we've prioritized these things, we've all agreed upon, and this is where the taxpayer dollars are going, and this is the bucket in which, doing this, because visualizing the year, right, 2025, 2026, this is the year in which we expect those things to be done.
Cool. Thanks. Thanks so much. We only have a few minutes left, but are there any comments on the other?
I'll just give you two updates of projects that were under construction last time we met. The Woodside Storm Sewer project, which installed new inlets and some water quality features. That is all done, and the application's into the county for the grant reimbursement for that. We had that huge rain a few weeks ago, and Jeff was out there, can attest it was working. It worked well, so that's good. And then the Haver Avenue, we did a sanitary sewer repair. All that work is done. The contractor's just waiting until the weather warms up to do the final trench restoration.
Okay, so I had kind of a follow-up question to that, because there's a problem on that corner of Woodside that's unrelated to your stormwater project.
It's adjacent to it, yeah.
With some bubbles.
Marion and Woodside. And the neighbor across the street on Marion, there's some pump discharges into the street, but with such force that it doesn't, you know, travel down along the curb,
Right.
like most sump pumps. But in fact, and maybe because of the slope of the street at that point, it dumps down into this corner. And as a result, you know, it like floods out that corner, and then when it freezes, the ice develops.
So I think to that end, I actually was talking with Kevin Walsh last week. I believe he's in the process. I gave him some language to use for an enforcement notice to, they're deciding it was either this property or this property. It was deciding which property's pipe it actually is, to address that with the property and tell them you need to do something to manage it.
So it's probably not against the regulations to discharge some pump into the street.
It is actually.
It
I don't
is.
think you're allowed.
It is, but we don't.
So let's put it this way, it
Crazy
is officially discharge out onto the street is not permitted by the borough ordinances.
But their grandfather did.
But there is quite a few, there's a lot of them. So if there's a lot of them, we're not going after them necessarily, but unless there is in this case, there is a safety issue with the road. And he's well versed with it. He spends more time with it than I do.
Where I was headed is that, I think, I mean, there are movements, county movements to, you know, get people to discharge their runoff into their lawn or disperse it into their property or into, you know, a seed pit or something.
By default, the ordinance requires that downspouts, ejector pumps, groundwater some pumps and downspouts be discharged onto a vegetated area or facility on that property. And only when there's demonstrated to the satisfaction of the borough that cannot be achieved is it permitted to discharge somewhere else, will be the official.
I think for the ones that are existing, it's on a case-by-case basis. Is this creating a public hazard? Is it a nuisance? And then in those cases, we would like them to disconnect because it's a safety hazard, it's a concern.
Yeah, but I mean, before we head down like an enforcement path, I mean, maybe we could just encourage them, or help them out, trying to discharge it somewhere else.
Well, I think that, and I believe in this case where that's headed, so the first step of, if you get a notice like that, and it'll all be administered through Kevin, is there's this issue,
Mhm.
you need to address it.
Mhm.
Please tell us how you're going to address that within this time frame. So you hope you don't have to go beyond that. But it's-
Okay, I think,
If I could also just
Sorry.
add quickly, excuse me.
Please, take your time.
Capital improvement plan does not include road paving. Just wanted to put that on the record, that road paving in my mind is a separate, while yes, it meets the definition of a capital improvement plan, I like road paving plans to be a separate thing because it's managed out of a different fund through liquid fuels funds, and I'm encouraged by what we're going to be doing with our road paving, and pleased to say that we're going to start paving this year. And that'll be coming soon. We'll have more details coming soon.
More details, expect paving in summer.
Yes. But it is an encouragement that we're doing it this year. We're going to start the annual road paving.
I think that makes sense anyway, because like capital improvement is more for like fixes or like new stuff, whereas like paving is just maintenance. So it wouldn't really be a capital improvement,
okay. Does anybody else have any, okay. So with that, I take a motion to adjourn.
I will do that.
Second.
All in favor?
hold on 1 second, just want to make sure that, just in case. Okay, there's no one in the waiting room.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.